Hi, everybody. Um, okay, so of course, today's topic, basic love and logics, but I'm really going to go through different types of parenting styles, of course, and I've combined several authors, researchers. So the thing is this is a book that has been around since the 90s. Man, I was going to grab these. So these are off my shelf, of course. This is what it used to look like. I can't see my camera very good. The grandparenting one, the teens one, the basic love and logics books from way back when. I get those used. You can get those used for $1.50 anywhere. Any thrift store or used books store, Amazon, anything like that, as a used book. So they're everywhere. This is a very common parenting style. That's why I love it. It's been around for a while and it's very well known. Have heard of it. If you haven't, then welcome. And it's just one of those things that works. And I'm gonna do a little profession about it. Confession and profession. So as a professional, as a family life educator and a clinical therapist, I came across this book before I was either one of those. I was a foster parent. And a good 15 years ago, I was a foster parent at the end of my career with fostering, but, the beginning and then the end. But in the beginning, I took this course and then later used it along the way and didn't even realize I was using it. Then became, a family educator and a clinician. And it's like, wow. So I haven't looked and read or listened to this book since, it's definitely been, 12, 15 years. But this is the updated version. So this is basically the same thing, just updated a bit. And so I ordered this one. Of course, now that we have this lovely thing called Audible, I have listened to this 3 times this last month, and I just absolutely love it. And it just is all very refreshing. And it comes back to me as like, wow, I've been talking about this for so long, but I haven't done the updated version, but there's just a few changes. So everything that's in this PowerPoint that is page numbers is this book, so the page numbers and the pearls and everything I'm going to go over is this new updated book with the page numbers. Now, if you get the old version that's like this, that's like, $1.50, awesome. Same thing. There's just a few little different things that they've updated, but it's the same process from 1990 to now in 2020. It's a serious issue of parenting that we're needing help with, and I know that everyone is struggling. And I struggle, my clients struggle, my family struggle. So this is just a little tidbit. So this is the thing, is just like, okay, there's 116 pages really that matters. Okay, the rest are all these pearls in the back. So we're going to talk about the pearls, but really the beginning of this book is 116 pages, and it's essential. I love how they author this. They give tons and tons of examples of this is exactly how this works. This is how you can say it better, things like that. So it is what works is what, works is choices, and that makes a responsible child. So that helps you raise a responsible child, and that's their basis of their whole theory. So with that, so 4 types of ineffective parenting. So there's 3 main people that I have on here that have come out with their own statements, their own, word for each type of parenting. So I put them all together. So I wouldn't want to butcher her last name, but the authoritarian and the neglectful and the permissive is the first one. Gottman is the dismissive and disapproving. So it's the second one. And Love and Logics is the third one. So they call a drill sergeant this, a turbo attack helicopter parent, or a helicopter parent. So I'm going to go over these. They are all the same thing, basically. So it's just awesome because it's like, okay, we've heard of the authoritarian, authoritative parenting. That's what we always, we're taught of the different types of parenting, but I put them all together because they're all very important and really great authors of how to parent. So authoritarian, disapproving, drill start. So too hard. So I'm going to go through what's aggressive, what's passive aggressive, and what's passive. So this one's aggressive. This is too hard, high demands. You want to battle. You go into battle with this one. You're strict. There's punishment, harsh. You're emotionally distant. It's cold and flexible. You have clear rules. They're like, drill sergeant. Here's the clear rules, but you use fighting words. Okay. So neglectful, dismissive, like a turbo attack helicopter parent is the Love and Logics term. So it's just way too self-absorbed. You're passive aggressive. You say one thing, you mean another. You don't follow through. So does not attend to a child's needs. That's the neglect part. You have little interaction. You're unattached. So attachment theory is something totally different, and someday we can go into that. But you don't have a secure attachment to the child, or you're just unattached, and that's a little different than just not being present. So shame, you shame emotions, you rescue out of guilt. There's a couple of these that we kind of rescue in, but the turbo attack helicopter parent is like, okay, so here's the turbo attack. So you get that, but then here's the helicopter parent. So you're hovering, but turbo attack helicopter parents go into the school, right? So if there's something going on, and they go into turbo attack, like, extreme emotional dysfunction there. So you don't allow failure. So they want to let you have the child avoid failure at all costs. That's not the Love and Logics way. So they blast away at everybody, right? So it's like, oh, don't you dare say that to my kid, And we'll talk about when you can step in like that, but a turbo attack helicopter parent, extreme. So the permissive, right? You're too soft, you're passive, you're over responsive. There's very little enforcement, few rules. You're in the friend zone. You're warm, and emotions are okay. You're going to share your emotions. You're going to talk about your emotions. You're going to okay, I see that you're this, and you're warm, and you're emotionally coaching, but there's no guidance in that emotion afterwards, and you kind of let them run free, and you're overprotective. If you're hovering, then that's the helicopter parent. So you overlook the child's mistakes. So it's not that the other one, the last one was avoiding failure. You don't like your child to, have failure, but this one is just permissive of like, I'm just going to overlook every, things that are going on. So those are all ineffective. And there's lots of research behind all three of these different kinds. And of course I could go in all day about the behavior side of what happens, and that is in the book, of what happens to children that are raised like this. Now, there's a really good point about this part. Number one is, hopefully, and the best scenario is two parents in the home, right? So single parents, you're usually co-parenting, and I had a past co-parenting class that was really good. That, if you need that, if you're dealing with that, then we can talk about that, or send you the video of that past class. But what happens is, what if you have maybe authoritarian, and then, when I go into the next one, that's the effective kind of parenting, or say you have authoritarian and a permissive. So that usually happens with parents. Like, you think about your own parents and how each one of them were one of these maybe, and how they were so different. So there's an authoritarian and then there's a permissive. So you never know what you're really going to get. But you do know what you're going to get from each parent is a very drill sergeant, or you're going to have a helicopter parent. So one parent's a helicopter parent, one's a drill sergeant, and it's extremely confusing, right? So that's what produces children with low self-esteem, behavioral issues, long-term attachment issues later, maybe, and there's a whole list, right? So that's something to consider. So please share this with your better half or your a grandma that's helping raise, your children or babysitting, so here's the grandparenting one. It's awesome. Because obviously you're in this class thinking, I might need some new tips. The world is so different. And the books and the models that I use from the 60s and 70s and this book from the 90s, like it is definitely changed. So that's the updated version is great because they talk a little bit more about internet and gaming and stuff, and just the cost of raising a child. And it's not material. Yes, materialistic. The cost of raising a child now is the average. I just read it. It's like $250,000. So yeah, it's like, why in the world? I get you. Like, wow. We produce these children and then we have to deal with this, and the parenting has gotten so difficult. It's honestly, I mean, it's just, we got to figure out how to do things a little bit better. So because of kids' behavior and so much younger, right? So the friend zone, the warm, the emotions, okay, that's all good. But then if you have authoritarian, an opposite parent, that's it's difficult for the kid. So they don't get consistency. So okay, so the effective type. Okay, so of course authoritative, emotional coaching is Gottman, and then effective parenting is Love and Logic. So authoritative is just right. It's assertive, which is what I teach a tons of assertive and boundary classes. Advises, they're consistent, they're aware, they are problem solvers, they have limits, they have patience, empathy. So we talk a lot about Love and Logic we lead with empathy. Coach and challenge is my own model not my own model, but a model that I use all the time. And I use those two words, coach and challenge, entice and invite, things like that. So it's you're coaching and challenging, which is emotional coaching, combined with that model. Thinking words, we're going to talk about choices. We're going to talk about a ton. You have options, like you're clear. You have natural consequences that we're going to allow failure. So you're going to model that behavior also. That sounds a lot better than the last three, because this is why, and I just talk about the authoritative and the emotional coaching is one of my favorites. And I mean, and actually in 2 months, I do a full emotional coaching class. So you'll get the whole thing on that. Next month is shame resilience parenting. So this is what it produces: a responsible kid, self-identity with self-concept. I'm going to go over what self-concept is. It's a little different than just self-esteem. So it produces an independent child, a healthy social skills, so they have their own opinions. They can think for themselves because they haven't been told how to think. That's the drill sergeant, right? They're self-disciplined. It's a win-win. So that's what a few little things that we're talking about, because that's what produces an effective, reasonable, responsible, confident kiddo. So that's the hope. Anyways, we hope, and it really does. Okay, so you have to start with self-concept, because self-concept is a little different. And I just kind of got, so from positivepsychology.com, I just kind of like, okay, there's parts of this that's explained in there, but this is just the basic self-concept definition. So the individual believes about themselves or herself, um, and they have of including their personal attributes and who they are and what self is. So they believe in themselves, in what they are. Okay, but that's a really, really broad self-concept definition. So really, the fourth one down here is where I say how you think others view you. That's how I kind of explain self-concept. It really is a huge environmental, biological factors of outside. So the self-concept is everything together. It's your self-worth, it's your self-image, your self-esteem, your self-awareness, your self-efficiency of like who you think and what you think you can do and be, but how you think other people view you. So we get these huge thinking or stories, I call them, about how people view us. So if a teacher told you when you were young you were dumb and you couldn't, pay attention and blah, so all of a sudden you viewed that teacher, and that teacher gave you some self-concept flaws, right? And so that's influenced so much by our social interaction, and school and bullies. And of course, I always quote Brene Brown also, of like the shame resilience of like what those things, how those things relay to us in adulthood. Like they are so, those thinking are stories that we have. So we have a self-concept issue if we don't correct this and repair some of this, right? So we want, of course, I think the biggest issue more than ever before is self-concept, self-esteem, self-image issues, because society is telling us what we shouldn't be and what we should be and what we should look like, what we shouldn't do. It's very, very much younger and younger and younger, of course. So, and that's because we're so bombarded by from the outside factors, right? So your environmental factors from the outside come in, and we're just bombarded by social media, and we know what the internet has done with that. So it's not learned. So self-concept is not learned. It has to be experienced, and it just doesn't, you don't inherit your self-concept. So this is the whole point to me of improving a self-concept in a kid, and this is how you do it with Love and Logic's parenting. So that's that. So we really need to understand what self-concept is, so we can recognize it when our kid is having self-concept issues. Is it self-awareness? Is it self-esteem? Or is it self-image or self-worth, self-value? And I didn't list those there, but that's what I call self-value. And self-worth are totally two different things too. So it's all the self-concepts, constructs. So is the self-concept of the whole thing. So if that makes sense. Okay, so we're going to go into, so there's a three-legged table, page 37, 38 in the book. So his idea of this, because I'm very visual, so it's always like a tree, it's a mountain, it's a lake, it's a it's a river, it's a table. So think about three legs. So of course, three legs, on a table. Is it going to be wobbly if you don't have the fourth leg? Yep. So these are like the main ones, and then of course if we add one more, we've got four legs. So number one is I'm loved by magical people. If someone has a self-concept, they know from the outside, again, that they're loved by magical people. I'm capable to take control. So if someone has a self-concept, a solid self-concept, they know that they're capable of taking control of a situation when they need to. If they have no control over it, then they step back and go, wow, I'm not going to personalize that. I don't have control over that. I'm going to not take on other people's problems when I have no control over it. That's like thinking error number 10 of personalization. So if you face it, I can make it. I can face it, I can make it. I can face this test in school. I can face a bully. I can face this. I can face cleaning my room. I can face brushing my teeth. I can face it, and then I'm going to make it. And that means I have skills. I have skills inside of me, that I have a self-concept that I can do this. And my biggest words that I use in therapy constantly on my emotional wheel is power and powerless. So one side's power, one side's powerless. So when we're in powerless, it's this side of the wheel of emotions, not bad or good, just one side is powerless and one side's power. So when we have power and self-worth and self-concept, we're in the joy and the content and peace side. And when we're powerless, we're in the hurt, lonely, disrespected, overwhelmed, right? Because we're powerless. And so how do we take back for an adult? This is a concept that we need to use for adults all the time, every day, because we feel so powerless in so much of our world, it seems. And so how do we take back power when we're in a crisis, trauma, or grief? So we take back power and go, okay, how do I take back power? Well, there's choices and boundaries and all that kind of stuff that we have to start with. So that's the four-legged thing, right? So here's four legs, but three-legged self-concept, like I said, it's on, 37 and 38. So the Love and Logic's book talks about that. Okay, so here we go.
Before you move on, Carol.
Yeah.
This is Heather. I just want to send a reminder. So I've went through and marked down who I could obviously tell registered, but some of you, by the name you logged in with, I can't tell. So make sure you're looking at your chat option on Zoom and see if I've messaged you to find out what name you registered or what first and last name. If I haven't messaged you, then you're already marked down. And then I also wanted to take a minute to remind everyone you can ask questions throughout this or send me a chat and I'll ask it for you. Don't be shy. We love questions. So thank you.
Yeah. Just interrupt me because I go like a million miles an hour. I get so excited. I love it. Okay. So this is the thing. So now let's talk about two things. So I'm just going to go through each thing that helps us be the Love and Logic parent. So the Love and Logic parent would use thinking words, not fighting words. And there's lots of course, that concept in the book talks about constantly with exact examples. And I'm going to read, some of those. But so this is the harsh startup, right? So this is a Gottman term, soft startup or a harsh startup. So it's like, so what do we start up with our kids when we're parenting? Do we start with the soft startup? Usually we do pretty good. It's like, hey, how was school today? Seems like you're kind of upset. When you got in the car, you slammed the door really hard. Or a harsh startup is like, what's your problem today? So though, thinking words versus fighting words, you're going to do the same thing. If you do a harsh startup with your boss, with your partner, with your spouse, it's going to be the same thing. That's what Gottman talks about relationships all the time is this is a harsh startup, this is a soft startup, same thing. So you start with a question or two options. The two options have two limits, two choices, two things. And then we're going to talk about choices and limits later. So we have to start with a question. If you want to know more about that, you go to habit 5 in Covey of 7 habits of highly effective people. And it's habit 5. It says, we need to seek to understand first before we're understood. Love that concept. Love it, love it, love it. Teach it all the time, how to do that. But you just read, habit 5. So reduces pressure. So I don't love pressure. I've really worked on like, okay, here's my pressure. What is causing me pressure right now? What is making me uncomfortable? This strong emotion or this, and wow, I'm uncomfortable. So what is it that I'm doing? So I want to reduce pressure of kids and parents. And, so how do you reduce pressure with the commute, with your job, with house cleaning, with you give power to the others around you, and then you get the pressure off, the kid gets the pressure off. And that sounds like, oh, that sounds magical. All right. I get it. It's like people think I'm not, but it's like, okay. So when I had foster kids and, I raised permanent ones, I had about 25 in a 10-year period. They came with extreme trauma, by the way. And so some of this is like, okay, so there's parenting her child, there's different concepts, but no matter what, this is why I like it. It works on the most traumatic experiences, abused kids, trauma, because once again, they're more powerless than ever. So we need to give back power. So increases self-esteem, self-concept when you're using thinking words, teaches responsibilities, and they can figure it out. So now let's talk about thinking words, what they are. Well, let me read, like, so there's lots of, let me read like what happens when you are using some thinking words instead of like fighting words. So of course it's like, if fighting words, let's do the opposite. Let's just go through this fighting word. So first it's like, okay, this is a fighting word. So the opposite would be, you get to work right now on this. You know, right now, you get to work on this. You got to get to your spelling words. Do the dishes right now. You know, I've waited too long for you to do this anyway. So it's just the opposite would be choices, right? Whatever those limits are. So we're going to talk about those choices, but you're not going to talk to me like that. Quit fighting, or what are you doing that for? So all that says, you don't take suggestions. You can't figure out the answer for yourself. You have to be told what to do, because the voice outside of your head is the parent. That's the drill sergeant. That's the authoritative person. Be quiet because I said so, right? So those are all fighting words. And there's lots and lots of examples in the book. But so, I mean, I could read through some of them. Most of what you're going to do, though, is really look at the pearls in the back for specific things. But here's the fighting words, right? So fighting words. Don't talk to me in that tone of voice. Thinking words is, you sound upset, number one. I always do a secondary emotion. So I would say, you sound frustrated. So that's a secondary emotion. I want to emotionally coach all the time. I'll be glad to listen when your voice is soft as mine. This is page 69. It's tip number 15, fighting words versus thinking words. The child is dawdling about, their homework. They're not doing their homework. Fighting words. You can get to work on your studying right now, right? Basically, that tone. And then thinking words, feel free to join us for some television after you get your studying done. Fighting words, be nice to each other, quit fighting. Thinking words, you guys are welcome to come back as soon as you work that out. So meaning we do have an option of where behavior happens. Okay, so we can, the key, there's some tips that we go over later, is you can change the location. If you are not sitting at the table and you're throwing your food on the floor and you're fighting at the table, then you get to change the location. You don't get to leave, they get to leave, and you get to finish, your meal. So it's just thinking words. You can carry your coat. I've used that a million times. Would you rather put on your boots now or in the car? Would you rather play nicely in front of the television or be noisy in your room? So do you see, you're changing the location. You can do it here or there. You can do it here or there. You can, but there are limits and their choices, but there are limits within your needs, right? So fighting words is, you put on your coat right now. Fighting words, because I said so, put on your boots, it's snowing outside. Well, of course it is, but I'm trying to watch football, be quiet. So those are those four opposites of the fighting words. So of the thinking words and fighting words. So that's a little example. So, and like I said, that's 69, page 69. So we have to now understand age groups of when kids have limits and choices. So the whole thing is, how do we give choices and when and how much, right? So this is just an example of the V of love, the right dose, right? So birth, we give tons of choices and limits, and that big section of birth to toddler, right? So the first 3 years, we have to allow the child to know that they're okay, because in my other class, I'm okay, you're okay, or okay is the magical word, is children come into the world as I'm not okay. And they stay that way until they're really 18. And hopefully after they're 18, they come out of that a little bit. Like, I'm okay. I think I'm okay. So you make the child okay. If you don't do that, they will form an attachment issue, and then they're like, well, I'm not okay, and I'm not getting fed or picked up or cared for. And then wait, now you're not okay because you didn't fulfill my needs. So that's where we give lots of choices and limits, and then we because they're not okay the first 3 years, they rely on us to fulfill those needs so much. And then toddler, okay? So it's like, wow, okay, here's this little section. This is how much choices and limits we give them. Elementary school, junior high, high school. So in the book, they talk about this on page 82. And in high school, it says there is very, very, very small limits. And that's when they're 17. So choices, they have choices, but the limits are very small. So the opposite, the inverted V, is when they become adults, and it's the other way around. So we're giving them lots of limits and no choices, right? So when they get to high school, we're trying to control and authoritative, and we're trying to like be drill sergeants, and because that happens a lot of times. I mean, I'm not going to bring up my own parents. They're good people. It's like, when they're not, it's like, okay, now we're going to control. It doesn't work, right? So that's just a little visual for you to kind of say, okay, where is my child at? And now how do we do choices? Now, once again, I have the question all the time is like, I've never really done this concept. I've never emotionally coached, or I've never, did Love and Logic's choices kind of parenting. When do I start, and how do I start? You can start anytime. Yes, of course, toddler age is when we really want to give them lots of choices. And then they move up into their self-concept after that, right? Of course. But man, you can start anytime, and don't, get into I call it mommy guilt. It's maybe daddy guilt too, but it's mommy guilt of like, I want to just rescue anyway. So what happens in high school too is we do tons of rescuing, which is that permissive helicopter parenting, stuff like that, when they get in trouble, right? When they get criminal charges. I mean, I work with adults after 18 with criminal charges, but man, they get criminal charges when they're younger, and they get bailed out, and they get rescued, and their parents pay for their court fine. And it's like, well, the cost of parenting goes up and up. So we're going to talk about that, because modeling is huge, right? So this is the other part, is here's the choices, and we're going to go over that. But first we have to model. Find a higher purpose, family values. That's a whole class in itself. I could do that all day long. So find your family values. If you need to sit down as a family, I call it hot topic time, or just do once a month, like review your value system that you've made together. And then you have to have a higher purpose in why you put boundaries around that value system. What you see is what they learn. They just copy. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's how it is. Cost of learning is going up, is what I just said. So they talk about this in the book. And it's really so true. It is costing us more and more and more for our children to learn a lesson, or to learn, not educationally, but it does, right? It's costing way more. But the cost of learning goes up just like that triangle. So up here, the cost of learning, failure and responsibility is going up, okay? So it depends on what you want to cost, what you want to pay for it in that situation, because later, they talk about this a lot, later on as they grow up, of course, that cost of learning is high. Now I'm telling you, I work with the court system, 18 and plus, you get an MIP, or which is an underage drinking, a DUI with pot or alcohol or whatever, after you're 21 even. I mean, you're looking at $1,500 just for your fine. It is not even, it's thousands of dollars after that. That's just one part of the cost of learning. So authoritative parenting is the model, right? So action more than words. And then, so I just put some pearls down, okay? So in the back of this book, like all of the back of this book is like 48 pearls, they call it. So it's like all these pearls of exact eating and table manners. So pearl 33 was, so you have an example. This goes along with modeling. I put some modeling ones in. So keeping a room clean. So keeping it clean, the room, right? So here's the example. The parent is, what is to be responsible for you to have your room clean by Saturday morning, or reasonable, I mean. So what is it to be reasonable that you can clean your room by Saturday morning? The child says, oh, I don't want to clean my room. The parent's like, well, that's okay. You don't have to. You can hire me or your sister or your brother to do it. We'll love to have some extra cash. So here's the cost of learning going up, right? Child, but I don't have any money. When adults, when adults don't have any money, they sell something. Yeah. So now we can get into that, right? The child sells something, the parent, you don't have to dictate or decide what you're going to sell, but you can tell me on Saturday. If you can't decide on Saturday, that means that your choice is to sell something, basically, right? And if you can't, that means I choose. So you can choose this choice or that choice. That's up to you. So that's an example of modeling. Plus, okay, you want to get into modeling, tip 849 too. It's the teeth brushing. So this is my favorite thing. I have said and demonstrated and role played this hundreds of times, and it's just one of those things that stuck with me back in the day when I did Love and Logics with my foster kids. So I have, with my own biological 3 kids, I have never once brushed their teeth for them. I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't know, because my parents never, ever said, I'm going to brush I don't care if you're toddlers. I never brushed their teeth for them. I gave them the toothbrush. I know that. And I gave them the toothpaste. And I said, watch me how to do this. So I always have this as an example. So if you want your kids, because I don't know what it is, but I have had numerous people have this battle at bedtime, right? So to me, it's traumatic, it's trauma, it's a bedtime battle that you do not want to have. It's extreme, and then kids don't sleep well, and now they've had a 45-minute battle about teeth brushing, getting to bed, get your pajamas on, getting to bed. And there's a pearl for getting to bed stuff. And so this is a biggest issue, is kids going to bed. But it starts with maybe like one of these situations is teeth brushing. So I'm going to demonstrate. So I brush my teeth and I model this. And I come out of the bathroom morning and night, however many days you want to do it, with the toothbrush in my mouth. I love it when my teeth are clean. Man, the dentist is going to love me this month because I got to go to the dentist and I got to make sure I don't have any value, that you have self-care, that you do hygiene, that you keep this clean or eat good food. And there's another, it's like, you just model it. And then you go back in the bathroom and spit out. It's like, man, that feels so good. Oh, I'm going to be so ready for bed. You never have to do anything or show them or tell them or do it for them, because that's rescuing. My kids have all had great teeth, but I mean, and then people are like, no, but you haven't seen my dentist bill. I'm like, yeah, but shoving a toothbrush down a kid's throat at 8:00 at night when they're 8, 10, and 12, maybe, is just not necessary, because it causes, so now it's become a traumatic experience before bed. So our brain goes into trauma, yeah, and that's a whole other right before bed. So it just is not necessary. So we don't have battles. My biggest favorite thing is there is no battles. We don't pick our battles. Wrong statement that whoever came up with that in past generations, I despise it. It's pick your boundaries. You pick your boundaries and you already have the family values set up and you have boundaries around that, and then you won't have any battles. Isn't that so special? Like, I think that
Hey,
it
girl.
for sure. Yes.
With the teeth brushing, so would it be wrong or right to say, do you want to come in and brush your teeth with me, or don't even?
Absolutely. That's so awesome, right? So of course, in modeling in the first 2 years of a toddlerhood, right? They're going to sit by you. They're going to read with you. They're going to, I love taking a bath. Oh, it feels so good, but the same thing is like, man, broccoli, whatever you want to use it with. But yes, you're doing it with them and showing them now. So if you get the little stool and say, okay, watch mommy brush my teeth. I love brushing my teeth. And you do it. And then you're like, you give them the toothbrush, you give them the tools, and then you go, so I'll be right back to check to see how you did.
So what if she's just like, no?
Then that's when we get into the last part of this.
Okay, sounds good.
A lot of the no, I don't want to. Well, you chose, so there's always a limit, right? And there's always a choice. So you know what? If you don't want to do it right now, but do you want to go read a story and then do it? Or do you want to do it now before the story? Because I guess we won't be able to read the story until you get your teeth brushed. Do you see what I'm saying? So
Okay.
then they will pick one or the other. And if there's a consequence because they chose the wrong one, now is natural consequences cavities in their teeth falling out? No, but it's just eventually it's like, wow. And same thing with bedtime. A lot of bedtime like no's, right? And then it's like, oh, I'm so sorry, you stayed up late, and so you're gonna,
Right.
and it's natural consequences. But teeth brushing is the issue because parents are like, I don't want my kid to have cavities because then it's a traumatic experience and it's expensive to fill cavities. Well, if it's a battle, they've now known that they can't do it on their own, and it's not their fault usually, really, that they're having cavities. It's their diet, it's just low enamel, it's all that other stuff. If they're like really, my foster kids came to me with their teeth rotted out of their head. I'm not kidding. 6, 7, 8 caps at 6 years old, like in the back. Their teeth were rotted. That's nutrition. So, there's other stuff going on, right? I mean, they if they brush their teeth or not. So,
Thank you.
okay, so this is my favorite thing. I don't push praising. Praising is not what we do, but what society does and what teachers do sometimes, and other so it's like we praise all the time, right? So here's this stuff in praise. So we've lost our mind with delaying gratification a little bit. Sorry, but we have. It's a book from 1973. I quoted it in the last couple classes. But so how do we just give praise and give stuff, and they don't have to work for it? They don't have to have an option like you said, oh, you're going to have to earn this, or you're going to have to, here's your allowance and this is what you get to, buy with it. But encouragement and appreciation goes a way, way, way longer. So it's not praise, it's appreciation. So if we praise all the time, you're a good kid. Oh, you're a good kid because you brush your teeth. Oh, you're so what happens if they don't brush their teeth? But when you say, I super appreciate your choice that you made. So now we get to go read your book. Super statement. There's no correction in play therapy. We don't correct in play therapy. So kids come in my office and they're super comfortable and trusting because I don't need to correct them because that gives them power. So if I encourage them to make the right choice, if there is one, right? Or I encourage them to brush their teeth before the story or after the story, whatever, encourage them with choices. It's totally different than rewarding them with stuff and praise. So just keep those in mind, those words. So, okay, so here's some tips. So in choices, these are some real choices. So when we get down to gain control through choices. So here's some tips on choices. You choose a choice that you can live with, okay? and that you like as the parent. So you choose the choices that you can live with and that you like. So if you can live with your kid never brushing their teeth, they might choose not to brush their teeth. But that's not something you can live with, right? Or that you like. Experiences the consequences. A choice has to experience the consequences. And you only give real choices, but never in danger. So I'll talk about that a little bit of when you step in and when you really step in. There is times where you just step in. 2 verbal choices, okay? Like, you are welcome to blank. Feel free to blank. What would be the best for you blank? This or this. Sometimes, 2 choices. I'll give you back this when you do this. Would you rather blank or blank? So thinking words, they allow mistakes. You're doing thinking words here. Your boundaries, not battles. Yes, be your yes. Your no, be your no. Your yes too. That's on page 79. So this is the part where rereading this book, I'm listening to it and then rereading it. I listened to it about 3 times. The consequences may be delayed. I read that a couple of times because sometimes I'm like, okay, consequences should be kind of immediate. So the kid doesn't forget and everything. But then I read this again. I'm like, nope, this is so perfect because it adds to the thinking words, right? So if you consequent delay the consequences, and I do teach this all the time. So for an example is the other statement that I despise is never go to bed angry. Nope, 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 nope. Just go to bed. So if your teen comes home at 1 and their curfew is 12, is it a really great time to be angry and and lay down the consequences? Absolutely not. So you say, wow, I'm really disappointed. I really want to yell at you right now, and I'm really angry, and I'm really tired. So we're going to talk about this tomorrow at 3, and you're going to have to come up with your 2 choices or consequences, and here's what I'm thinking. So at 3 o'clock, you're going, here's what I'm thinking. This is going to have to happen. Which one do you want? And the first thing you do, though, in any of this, so you would start off with, I'm really sorry that you were late at 3 o'clock the next day, even. Man, that makes me really sad for you that you've chose to, and that you're going to have to make a consequence choice and lose your car or blah, 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 right? So model empathy and emotional coaching. So it's always empathy. And it's sincere. It's not passive aggressive. It's like, oh, and it's not sympathy. Sympathy is, oh, you poor thing, I'm so sorry you had to, fail your test because you didn't study. That's not empathy. I'm literally sorry that you got an F on that test. I feel really bad for you. I hope that you can figure it out for next time. My next biggest tip is egg timers. Love them, use them all the time. Therapy, parenting. I have them right here in my drawer because I use them like this. So the time is your boss with pain management, so if I tell a kid, when this is over, you get to do this or this. And they get that because they're toddlers or they don't know time. This egg timer does what it does. It goes off. It's alerting. It's 5 senses. It's a kid has power over it. So, if they're smaller, you set it for 10 minutes, you put it up. Oh, as soon as this is done, I hope that I can come back and talk to you when, and if you need if you need more time to have your tantrum, then when this goes off, I'm going to come check on you and you can let me know if your tantrum's done. And if you're ready to come out and join us for dinner, right? Because they threw a tantrum at the dinner table. So, and some other tips are right here. So these are your self-talk tips for you, and then your statements, right? So the statements to the kid is, oh, I know. Yeah, nice try. And sometimes we just have to say, oh, when they're being deceitful, I love you too much to fight. I love you too much to do this. I love you too much to allow you to have no boundaries in this house. I'm sure you can and will figure it out. It seems like, always a secondary emotion, you're very frustrated right now, so you can blank or blank. And I see that you can or can see, I can see blank. So I can see that you're really upset. I can see that you're kicking your feet really good. And you just do a statement. And there's no correction like, stop kicking your feet. That's fight words. So your self-talk is, what will I allow? And what will I do? And then what will I provide? So it's what do I allow is your limits. What will I do? And then, okay, here's what I will provide. Here's two choices. I will provide you this and this, or that's, and you don't waver. So it's like, we can't just give in. We can't do warnings. We can't do those things. And the thing is what's happening with this, and the reason why is because we confuse protection with love. So love is not just protection. It's not, so we protect and overprotect and hover, and we take away kids' gravity so they can't fail and fall. And the way that they learn responsibility is failure. And that's a really tough thing nowadays to say, yeah, my kid can just fail and they're going to have to fail. But the cost, I promise you, is greater as they get older. So lead with empathy, and then like, oh, here's your secondary emotion. Oh, I feel really bad for you. Seems like, but I think you're going to figure it out. And I love you a lot, right? So these provide learning experiences that are like, I don't know, they're priceless to me. I mean, you have to have those. So, okay, so a temper tantrum we can go over real quick is one that I really wanted to use. So the non-compliance. So here's a kid, I don't want him. Wait, and there's lots of scenarios in this book about that. I mean, every scenario in the back of this book is basic what every parent and every kid's going to do. They're pearls. Like I said, there's 48. With the grandparenting and the teens, they're just different pearls. So the same concept, but different pearls. So pearl number 44, temper tantrums. Let them happen. Change the location. Give a few options and choices, of course. No losing your temper. Safe voice, soft empathy. And that's how you do temper tantrums. And that's a whole other class too, because I love emotion in kids and how to teach parents to emotionally coach, but that is next on the list for next month. So how to do that non-compliance, avoid the battle. Just avoid the battle because you've already put up the boundary. At all costs. That's spelled right. At all costs. So if you are going to get in one, win. Do a win-win. It's like, nope, this is how we're going to win. And this is the only way that I will win, and you have to win. But if you're going to get into the battle, win. Pick the issues carefully. So that's not picking your battles, that's picking your boundaries and then picking the issue with the battle, right? Practice and repeat. It takes so much practice. But it's you first being present, you first knowing what you need. It's the child's job to push the limits. It's your job to hold them. That was in our boundaries parenting class a couple months ago. So parenting with boundaries. So that's why I did that one before this one, because you have to have boundaries so you reduce the battles. So that their job, their brain has to develop by pushing boundaries. Kids' job is to push them. Your job is to hold them. Their brain won't develop the same if they don't push limits. So they're pushing your limits. Yeah, I don't want to brush my teeth. Well, that's not one of the choices. It was before the book or after the book. So remember, the cost is going up. That was tip 331. To protect them is not to love them. This responsibility cannot be taught. It must be caught. So, and that is it. So, and there's the two basic books. The grandparenting one's not on there, but it's right here. Grandparenting one. But the updated versions of this, of Love and Logics, is those two books. So Parenting with Teens and Parenting with Love and Logics. Parenting Teens, yeah. So questions. We're good on time, man. We're out. So, but we can do a few or whatever.
A couple.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions? Do they want to turn their mics on or send them to me in chat? We have a couple minutes. While we're waiting for that, again, check your chat on here if you logged into this with just a random name and you didn't use your first and last name to see if I messaged you. I want to make sure I can send you this recording and all the resources Carol talks about. And then I'm not getting any questions in, so I think that is it. I will keep this on for probably 5 more minutes in case anyone wants to send me a chat on here privately or an email. And yeah, we're all good.
The handout that you'll get with the email, it just gives examples of really good fighting words, thinking words, fighting words, thinking words of how to deal with that. But the pearls are what you're looking for certain situations.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, everyone. That is it.